Turn up the dive, feel the vibe, get ready to ignite. Untold stories in the airways, flying through the night. Experience voices, tales so bold. Streaming live, the truth unfolds. Untold Radio Network, where secrets come alive. New episodes daily, the mysteries thrive. Great guests, super chat, it's so I remember right. Share and subscribe, join the side where truth can't hide. Aliens in the attic, UFOs in the sky. Cryptids lurking, oh my, oh my. Ghosts in the hallway, whispering your name. The paranormal, the unexplained. Become a VIP, get the inside scoop. Unlock the mysteries, be part of the group. Live streaming stories, they're talking to you. Super chats buzzing, join the crew. Untold Radio Network, where secrets come alive. New episodes daily, the mysteries thrive. Great guests, super chat, it's a wild member ride. Share and subscribe, join the side where truth can hide. So if you've got the guts and you want to explore, tune into the Untold, it's what you're looking for. From aliens to ghosts and all that's unseen. Untold Radio Network, where the world's mysteries convene.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the Paranormal Spectrum, live on the Untold Radio Network. I am your host, Barnaby Jones, from Cryptids, Anomalies, and the Paranormal Society. Good morning, Lee Warner, and hope that you as well have a wonderful Labor Day weekend coming up here, as well as everyone out there listening to the show today. Maybe you will perhaps take a trip down to our location of today's show. But before we get to that, let us check out where we are going to be coming up with CAPS. We are going to be at Silicon in Gaze, Illinois, September 19th and 20th for an amazing two-day event, Comic-Con, with all kinds of wonderful speakers, presenters, cosplayers, events, vendors, and so much more coming up the 19th and 20th. Then, guys, September 27th, we head to the Van Meter Visitor Festival in Van Meter, Iowa. Come on out and check out this great event as well, with vendors and speakers, as well as a walking tour of the locations that were the Van Meter Visitor had been seen. And then, guys, if you're interested in the spooky, all October, we are offering paranormal tours of Bean Snappers Gentlemen's Club. It is Wisconsin's premier haunted gentlemen's club with over 100 years of history in the building. The building was originally passed down for 4 generations, with several reported deaths in the building. It is a very active investigation. So if you guys are looking for something spooky to do this October, head on over to hauntedbeansnappers.com. Click on the spooky side, or just head to Wisconsin Caps and find all the details there. Coming up, we are going to be at the Shawano County Library on October 16th, the Brownsville Public Library on October 22nd, and the Neenah Public Library on October 25th. All of these are going to be presentations on exploring the paranormal to give you a good background on all things spooky and paranormal, as well as following these presentations, we are going to be doing paranormal investigations of the libraries. So Brownsville Library and Shawano Library have both informed me that they actually have had paranormal experiences in the library that we are going to be investigating and checking out with you. These are free events, so make sure that you mark your calendars, and you can get all the information at wisconsincaps.com/public events. And then coming up in 2026, we are going to be in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin for CapCon Wisconsin, May 8th through the 10th. That is it. That is what we got coming up here, guys. Looking forward to awesome. Lee says that this weekend she's going to be scraping and painting her deck. Ooh, that sounds like fun. Wow. Definitely, yeah. Sorry, Lee. All right, guys, without any further ado, I want to introduce you to our guests this day. All right, guys, Chris Soucy and Megan Jones are the husband and wife, co-owners of the Savannah Paranormal Museum. Together, they brought their fascination with all things supernatural to life in an interactive museum that explores the paranormal world. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show, Chris and Megan.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
I'm excited here. We were talking before the show. I'm looking forward to doing a whole bunch of interviews with different museums across the United States and across the world. I have reached out to, and I think in this series, I think you guys are going to be the first ones, hopefully not the last. So I want to showcase these different locations and get some stuff just about like what you guys are doing for the community at large. We talk a lot about conventions and stuff on the show, but I want to talk to the people that have these brick and mortar buildings and stuff that have these museums. So starting off, tell us a little bit about yourselves and how you got personally interested in the topic of the paranormal.
You want to start?
Yeah, so I have been fascinated with the paranormal since I was a small child. I had a profound experience when I was 6 years old, and from that moment forward, I was participating in any form of investigation or just seeking out the stories of every place. I was a military brat, so we moved a lot. And what you find when you move a lot is that every place has a tone about the paranormal. They have different stories, different legends, things that resonate with the space, with the area, from cryptids to that one house that is haunted to the local ghost lore. And so I just was cataloging these ghost stories all my life, visiting these haunted spots and haunted locations. And because of that, over time, people kind of just relegated me to that place in their mind as the ghost guy. Oh, that's the ghost guy, my friend who knows ghost stories, my friend who knows about ghosts. And when that happens, when you get branded that way, people look to you for solutions. And that's really what happened. Was I started a informal collection of items that people just didn't want in their house. People would be freaked out by these things. They claimed that they caused all kinds of calamities, and they would literally drop them off at my house or mail them to me and be like, deal with it. This is not a really good way to deal with haunted objects, by the way. Just depositing them at your friend's house is really kind of sucky for the friend. So my wife, Megan, she has a pretty steadfast rule about haunted objects.
No haunted objects in the house.
No haunted objects in the house.
The house is my safe place. It's where I live. I don't want to be creeped out with my house. I'm here alone a lot, in the dark a lot. Like, no haunted objects in the house. No ghost hunting in the house. No testing ghost hunting equipment in the house. We don't want to know. We don't want to find out.
So we kept the haunted objects in the shed. So I had the most haunted shed on the block. And over time, I've worked in the ghost tourism industry in Savannah, which is a very big booming industry. So I've owned ghost tours. I've done speaking engagements. I've been on ghost hunting shows. It just comes with the territory. But there was no real physical place where you could really kind of do a deep dive on what paranormal activity really is, or things of that nature. It's all very situational to the places. So when we got to thinking about it, it was like, it would be nice to create a complementary business, something that, enhances people's experience going to these haunted locations if they could come and learn a little bit about the paranormal world, paranormal history, things of that nature. And so that's kind of where the idea was born. And then it just became an easier process once we were like, we should go ahead and do this. Prior to the pandemic, we actually owned theater companies. We owned an improv theater company and a Shakespeare theater company. And when we were doing that, it occupied all of our time. So there was no time to really, daydream about what we would do. We even really wanted to do like a haunt.
Yeah, our first iteration over a decade ago was to have a haunted, like a 24-hour or a year-long haunted experience where it was actors and walking through a house or a location.
Because then again, it was that complementary idea where you hear these ghost stories, or you can come to us and kind of experience,
have a scary experience,
have that scratch that itch of horror or supernatural stuff. But we found that a paranormal museum kind of is even more in depth in that discussion. It really adds more to it.
And Megan, how did you get involved in the paranormal, or did you just latch on there?
Literally, I actually moved to Savannah to go to college, and at some point, one of my friends I had made was like, "You gotta go on a ghost hunt." And I was like, what is that? What? Sure, let's have this experience. I must have been 20, 19. And so Chris would do these ghost hunts with his group of friends. And so I was an outskirt friend, just dragged along for a ghost hunt. And so my very first ghost hunt was the railway.
The Meldrum
train. There was a massacre where the train jumped the tracks. And it
hit
was,
a picnic,
families.
Not even a family picnic. It was like a business.
Church business.
Yeah, it was like... 30 people evaporated, because it was a fuel train, and it went and it blew and like no remains. It was just like,
we all got in the car and drove like an hour to this location, and it was around the 50th anniversary of it happening, and it was such a scary experience. I'm like, this is horrifying. And it kind of started my love of being like, we can do this. We can go ghost hunting. We can search for ghosts. And so when we started dating, I would go on his ghost tours he would give in the evenings, and I memorized all his stories, and fascination turned into marriage. So here we are. And then I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a business owner. I like to start businesses and get them up and running and on their feet. So I have another business that was running, and I was like, I now have the liquid funds. Let's start this new business. I don't think it's a haunted house. And so, and our talks about it, and talks, we realized the museum was the perfect kind of idea, a paranormal experience that wasn't hokey. It was legit, a place where people could safely come in and experience what they needed to experience in a safe environment. Obviously, we've only been open since May, so it's a very new business, but it has been receiving the most outstanding, like, people love it. It's been
the feedback has been great.
The feedback has been amazing. It's been and we run it most of the time. Like, we have 2 other employees. We get to sit at the front desk, and people will come in and be like, either I don't believe it or I'm psychic or whatever. But when they come out, they're like, okay, that things are actually haunted. Yeah, they are.
And it breeds a lot of wonderful conversations. You hear people's stories, and there's a lot of people, my favorite ghost stories that I've collected in my life usually start with, I don't believe, but, it's like, I don't believe in ghosts, but there was this one time, and, they have this caveat of this one experience that they just can't explain. And it's usually like devastatingly scary, and like, and you don't believe? Like, how did you manage that?
That was enough for you?
Right.
To bring you back around?
You hear that a lot from like police officers, like being out on patrol or being out and experiencing something that they just can't wrap their heads around. But because they're so analytical in how they, observe things, they have all these facts, lined up, but they don't match.
Interesting. We're going to have to jump back to that. But so you have a brick and mortar museum in Savannah,
Yes.
Georgia, right? So walk us through the museum itself. So you get there. what is the address? Where can people find the building? And is the building haunted? Tell us about the whole experience of getting the building, where it came from, and then like a little bit of a walk through how it's laid out in the building.
So we're 415 West Boundary Street. So Savannah has a 1 square mile historic district. It's very small. And so we're about a 2-minute drive from the true historic district. So when we were searching for a location, we started last January 2024 and flubbed around miserably. It's very expensive in Savannah. We were finding things that were like $12K a month or $8K a month, but it's in the basement on like a main strip. So no parking, no elevator. And so we searched and searched, and we finally, I was like, if we don't get this signed and leased by August 15th, we're not doing it because it's too close to the end of tourist season and Halloween. We won't be ready in time. And so at some point during this whole process, there was this building that had 4 bays, and our friends were in one of the bays. And I said, Chris, that's our building. And he says, what? No.
It's full.
It's completely
completely rented out.
It's rented out. I'm like, that's it. I already know that's it. That's our space. And I manifested it. And so by the time December of last year rolls around,
it was empty.
Every bay was empty. Yeah. Every bay. And so we had our pick of the bays. And before we moved into the space, we signed the lease and it was empty. We actually did several ghost investigations in the space and proved that it's super haunted already, like baseline haunted.
Came with ghosts.
It came with the ghosts, and we had a lot of experiences there. And then to basically load it up with a bunch more haunted stuff, it just became this kind of whirlwind twister of haunted in this space. So people come in and they're like, is the building haunted? And it's like, it was haunted before we brought all the haunted stuff into it.
And now it's just chock full of, visitor ghosts, tourist ghosts.
And you want to give them the walkthrough room by room?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that we really wanted to do was dedicate a room to paranormal history. What were the stories that were told from the beginning? And we have displays that touch upon like ancient Mesopotamian art that features ghosts. The first known ghost story, which was like Pliny the Elder, or Pliny the Younger, one of the Plinys, from ancient Athens, witch hunts, the spiritualist movement of the 1800s. So we created like a little parlor room that doesn't really dedicate itself so much to haunted objects as much as it does to haunted history. And there is one haunted object there, which is this crazy haunted mirror that is hanging in there, but it fits the parlor theme. And then we go into a Savannah room, which is dedicated to Savannah's hauntings, to the stories that, prop up the belief that Savannah is the most haunted city in the country. We have a big, gigantic map, and we have like little red strings that draw.
We call it the murder wall because we've got pictures all around the map, and then the map, and we've red string the map to the pictures.
So it looks like mad conspiracy theory, but it's really just highlighting how this one dense square mile is so full of hauntings. And these are only the hauntings of like publicly accessible places. We didn't want to put like people's private homes or things like that. So these are like, hotels and public parks and cemeteries and things like that. And that gives you just a general outline of how haunted it is. And that room also includes a Gullah Geechee area. The Gullah Geechee are the when the slaves were freed in this region, they were mostly Angolan, and they created this culture, Gullah Geechee, which is hugely influential in a lot of the folklore throughout the South, all the way up through the Appalachian Trail. All of these things really do originate with the Gullah Geechee beliefs of root magic. And a lot of people throw the word voodoo around, but it's not voodoo. Voodoo is a different variation of the same kind of practice, but that has to kind of go through, Haiti and come up. A lot of that is more like in the Haitian slave trade coming up through Louisiana, and there is like a Haitian element in Savannah, but that's a much smaller group than the root doctors of the Gullah Geechee. So we have a lot of that. Then you go into a cryptid room. We basically created a room where the most famous of the cryptids are highlighted, and we built life-size approximations of these cryptids. We have Mothman and Bigfoot.
My favorite is the squonk.
We have a squonk.
Everybody who learns about the squonk has a new favorite cryptid.
Oh yeah,
it's the squonk.
He's strangely adorable for being so ugly. We have a chupacabra. We have an Altamahaha, which is a river monster from Georgia, about 45 miles south of here. There's the Altamaha River, and they believe that there is this serpentine creature monster, kind of like a Loch Ness monster, in the waters
It's
there.
our own Nessie.
It's our own Nessie. They call him Alti. And then we also have Hat Man in there.
Everybody really likes this Hat Man because we've made this imposing figure, all black with a hat but red eyes staring out, and it's a jump scare because as you come around the corner, he's right there.
And he doesn't really qualify as a cryptid, we admit, but that's where we put him. And we have a Jersey Devil. And then if you go from there, you go into the artifacts room.
It's a big galley space, so we put lots of stuff in there.
And we have countless items that were brought to us from other museums that had closed down, from we have one that came from a sort of like a curiosity shop in North Carolina that got destroyed by Helene. And these haunted objects are the ones that survived that destruction. We've got lots of objects that were just either donated directly from people who are like, this is terrifying me, or from people who are like, I'm having, very dramatic, ill effect from exposure to these objects. We've got Dybbuk boxes. We have a Kuman Thong. If you're not familiar with Kuman Thong, it is a bizarre Thai custom of basically roasting fetal or stillborn babies and gilding them in gold to create kind of a good luck charm from the tragedy. We have one that after the outlawed practice of actually roasting, baby bodies, they sculpt them now using ash, cemetery dirt,
ash.
Cemetery ashes, things like that. And this one is potently bizarre.
Yeah, we got some stories about that Kuman Thong.
Yeah. And then we actually have a room that's dedicated to a single object, a single doll that is, when we received it, we were told this will be the most interactive of the
objects. If you
objects.
can give her own space, she will act up with people. And so we dedicated a whole room to her. We gave her own S-Box that runs and Spirit Chat that runs. And
people get amazing results. They hear their names being called. The
most common occurrence is get out. Yeah. She'll be done with you and she'll be like, get out.
Get out, run, leave.
But at some point, we have tables in there that were holding the Spirit Chat and the S-Box. Somebody left a couple coins. They're like, here's some coins. And when I saw that, I'm like, oh my God, Emerald Dean, your first offering, look. And since then, it has snowballed.
We had to put another table in.
It's so filled. We had to add a second table. People leave coins and cards and
dolls.
Jewelry.
Somebody actually had a doll with them.
They
and left
make
it there.
drawings for her.
Yeah.
I had to remove a tampon once, a bullet once.
Somebody left a bullet.
It's still Georgia, but
yeah.
And so I'll go through in the mornings we work and I'll take off the trash. I'll be like, all right, Emeraldine, I'm not taking your offerings. These are crumpled receipts. I'm just gonna get rid of them. But sometimes I'll go in and be like, Emeraldine, you've got so much cash here. Somebody left you a 20. Can I get you a piggy bank and put them in? And if the S-Box is running a Spirit Chat, it'll always say no.
Clearly say no.
No.
Put it down.
And so people come in and she'll say offering or
coin.
And so people are like, oh girl, you want a little more? You need another offering?
Yeah.
We even had somebody leave an offering and call us and be like, please remove my offering. I've been sick since I left it. I don't think she liked it, and I cannot kick whatever's happening to me. And so Chris actually removed the item and buried it in the back of the backyard of the museum.
Interesting. Oh.
And then, of course, exit through the gift shop.
Yeah, and then a gift shop.
That's always my favorite part. Anybody that knows me, I'm a sucker for little shops and stuff, and you got to come away with everything.
We've got a nice little gift shop going. It's obviously very new, but we sell like Spirit Chats, and we've got mystery boxes and shirts and stuff. It's cute. People like it. We even have Aztec death whistles.
Yeah, the Aztec death whistles do sell pretty well. We actually have an actual Aztec death whistle from 1,500 years ago. That was actually given to us by a demonologist who does lots of research throughout South America. And he had all these artifacts, and he's like, here's an Aztec death
Honestly,
whistle.
I asked for it. He's like, anything else you guys want from the things I've given you? I'm like, please, I need the Aztec death whistle. He's like, you can take this on loan, but you may not blow into it.
Yeah, don't put your mouth on it.
It will disintegrate. I'm like, okay. So we gently put it in there. And in the case it's in, there's a little placard, and it says, if you say death whistle out loud, somebody in the gift shop will blow an Aztec death whistle. And so if people say it in the museum, we'll be like, okay, we're gonna blow the whistle, and we'll blow it, and it's like a
It
shriek
sounds like a woman screaming
through the
bloody
whole, and
murder.
so everybody gets a good jump scare. It's a good time, but we always give a little heads up. We're not
Yeah.
trying to jump scare anyone on purpose.
Yeah, we don't have anything rigged to scare you.
Nothing,
So,
nothing set to pounce, because it kind of cheapens what we're trying to do here.
That's awesome. All right, so now let's get into some of this stuff. So I love the fact the different rooms and stuff. I love this because you have a whole room dedicated to local history as well.
Oh yes.
And I guess, like, maybe this is something that all museums have or something, but I guess that it didn't hit me that you guys would have had that. So this is really interesting. That okay, so Savannah, Georgia was one of the locations that, growing up when I'm watching TV and stuff and watching the paranormal shows and stuff, Savannah, Georgia, to me always stood out as like the most haunted place. And it's not the only places, but one of the places around the country that I actually haven't gotten a chance to go to. So I've been to Georgia, I've been to Atlanta, Georgia, but I haven't been to Savannah. And
Gotta come down.
I know. See, but I haven't been there. But so it's really interesting that you guys have a whole room based on the history. So tell us a little bit about the history of Savannah. Why is it so haunted? Why do people think it's haunted? And a little bit more about that.
So that question comes up so often that I kind of broke it down into a simple metric. Whenever we're talking about hauntings anywhere in the world, you kind of listen to what everybody believes causes haunting. What are the main reasons that hauntings occur? And I kind of came up with the top 3 reasons in every culture on the face of the earth why the dead bother the living. And if you can kind of like listen to those indications, it's basically the very first reason, the top of the list, is desecration of grave. Every culture has a deep and steeped, mythology, lore around how you treat the dead, and burial mounds and tombs and all these things. And if you disturb that, you are almost guaranteed a haunting. In fact, that's the whole reason we have graveyards to begin with, is to put the dead in a place that they're not supposed to come back, and bother us. Savannah, Georgia had this habit of building over their cemeteries. It had this habit of relocating cemeteries unceremoniously. It had a habit of taking a graveyard, an entire graveyard, the very first burial ground. They took all of the bodies out of the first burial ground and just kind of created a mass grave. And then took all the tombstones and just sort of leaned them against the wall. And so there was no indication of whose body was with what stone, and that level of, and this was not like long after these people had died. This was within 20 years of the cemetery, being started, which means that it was within like less than a few years of the last person who was buried there. These were fresh, recent dead people whose graves were tilled out of the ground so that they can build the square. And so with these like 4 major cemeteries, a lot of people call Savannah a necropolis because it's built on top of their dead, but it's not built on top of their dead like the catacombs of Paris. It's built on top of their dead in the most unceremonious, most disrespectful way imaginable. It's literally like, oh, there's people buried. Put a house on it. Boom.
The problem is they showed up here from the river 3 blocks in. They're like, that's a perfect place for a huge sprawling graveyard. We'll never build houses that far out.
Right.
And of course,
they kept thinking that they were building on the outskirts of town, but it became the center
of town. And so it's how we got the movie Poltergeist. Actually, it's based on Savannah, because
Savannah actually one of the main storylines did come from what is now Taylor Square in Savannah.
They moved the headstones.
They moved the headstones, but didn't move the bodies.
And then when they went to move the bodies, they're like, headstone body. Big hole for the bodies, headstones along the wall. It'll be good enough.
Yeah. And in many cases, they didn't even do that. In many cases, they just didn't even bother mentioning that this was a graveyard or these were burial grounds. Taylor Square was significant because it was the slaves' burial grounds. And so they didn't think they needed to acknowledge that those bodies were there. So they just built the square on top of them. So yeah, lots of ghost stories. So that's the number one reason. The second one is called unfinished business. Unfinished business is the classic, like, this is why the woman comes back because her love was lost, or this is why this person comes back because they were murdered and they have unfinished business, or they died so suddenly that their lives, were so abruptly ended that they want to finish out some task or something like that. And so in Savannah, Georgia, we have major incidences of yellow fever, which swept through the town, major fires that killed many people, 2 major war conflicts that came in, causing death and mayhem. There's just been so many tragedies steeped upon each other that you had a lot of spirits who were killed just in the prime of their lives, or during a time when they had a forecasted life that was cut short. And I think that really does add to that notion, or that feeling of whether or not a ghost will come up, is when life is cut with expectancy. I thought I would live 50 more years and then I died. So I feel owed the time on this plane, or I just don't realize I'm dead because I have so much unfinished business. So that being the second condition, that is again, time and time again, you hear these stories that were massive amounts of deaths in the town, and it was cutting people's lives short. And then the last is non-human entities. It falls kind of into residual hauntings and the notion of residual hauntings. Savannah, Georgia has the largest continuous historic district in the country. It is 1 square mile that is exactly the same as it was laid out in 1733. 1 square mile that hasn't altered its change. And so when you think of residual energy as something that moves in patterns, if the patterns haven't changed, if the traffic hasn't changed, if the squares are all there, it makes sense that residual energy has built up enough presence that history is just page after page after page on top of the same outline. And that outline comes through and people can see what occurred centuries gone. And that, to me, are the 3 reasons why I always typify that Savannah, has grounds for their haunted reputation, is because they tick off those 3 things very nicely. And I'm not saying that those 3 are the only conditions of haunting, but they are the most popular in every culture on the face of the earth.
That is awesome. I've never thought of the the layering the pages and stuff like that. We always hear about when you change a house or you disturb
right house, yes,
that it causes this activity to add up. But it would make sense just the opposite as well, that if these paths are not disturbed,
and that's the other thing is renovation. The reason why it kicks something up is because the energy is running into an obstacle now. You've changed the pattern, and that becomes there's friction now. It's not so like a residual energy can just play like a record that's on loop. But if you put a crack in the record, every time it skips, it becomes highly noticeable. And that's where that whole renovation story comes from. You've changed the environment, and now the energy is butting up against a new energy. The new energy, even like people moving into a house. That's new energy coming into the house. And if it's not complementary, if the energy of the family moving in doesn't jive with the energy of whatever residual spiritual energy is in the house, there's going to be friction. Same with buying an antique. You can buy an antique from a store, but what if that antique was in a house that was full of energy that is not complementary to your energy? And you bring it into your house, and now there's this friction point. It's not saying, oh, that's a haunted object. It's suggesting that the energy of that piece doesn't jive with the energy of your life. And now you're sensing that unease. You're sensing how those 2 things are rubbing against each other somehow.
That makes sense. Lee Warner would like to know, isn't there a famous creek or river that is haunted or has a lot of cryptid activity just outside of town?
So many. It's very difficult. But the one that immediately jumps to mind is Ebenezer Creek. Ebenezer Creek was the site of a terrible massacre. It was far worse than just a massacre. It was a betrayal. It was terrible. It was basically the Union forces had built a bridge to help escaping slaves, and they were crossing Ebenezer Creek. And then on the other side, one of the Union officers did the unthinkable and was like, cut them loose. They cut the bridge while everyone was on the bridge, and the bridge washed away. Hundreds died, and many of them were still going into the water even though the bridge was gone, because that was their only salvation, their only hope. So many died in an act of just utter cowardice and betrayal. And so that river does indeed weigh heavily in our history. And what's even more fascinating is there are like houses built up right off on, and I had to go and investigate a house that was having like all kinds of problems, but I didn't realize its proximity to Ebenezer Creek because of the way you get to it. We weren't, in my brain, we weren't close to Ebenezer Creek because the roads don't go near there. But when I finally looked at a map, I was like, oh my God, we're like 50 yards away from a branch of Ebenezer Creek. And so we ended up doing like walks through the woods, and we're like, oh yeah, we're at the site. This easily could just be just all of this residual angst and heartache and anger and so yeah, Ebenezer Creek is one of them. But like I said, the Altamaha is about 45 miles south here, and there is a giant sea creature that lives there. So much so that the Darien is the name of the town in Georgia. Their Chamber of Commerce building has a mock-up of the Altamaha inside their office, and I think their visitor center has one as well, because it's fascinating, and there have been reports of that creature since the 1700s. And then there are lots of Buttermilk Sound is a little south of, actually it's at the very south of it. And there's a lot of tales of the black dog and a torso that kind of crawls like an inchworm, and there's all kinds of terrible stories. So yeah, it's really weird being in an area that is so full of ghost stories, because I think that you could say, isn't there and then fill in the blank, and everybody be like, oh yeah, of course, the haunted ice cream shop, oh yeah, of course, the haunted dentist studio, oh yeah, the tattoo, it would just I don't think you would find something that didn't have a correlation.
Sounds good. So obviously, being in Savannah, Georgia, we've talked about the whole history of the town being haunted, and you said there's numerous ghost tours and other museums and stuff around there. So this probably doesn't necessarily pertain as much to you, but when you're opening this up, how did people react to having a paranormal museum in town? Obviously, it's pretty accepted in this town, but what was the reaction and the community?
We had the same reaction every time we spoke its name. About time. There isn't one? My God.
How has there not been one? Why
is there
one?
This is the first one? You're doing it? Oh, you're doing it. Okay. Where has this been?
So yet another reason why I think Savannah is so haunted, truly, or not even why it's so haunted, but what allows for its reputation is the community embraces ghosts here. There is not this contingent of that doesn't exist, or that's a lie, or that there's almost a conceit that every building is haunted, and and the locals are like, oh, you don't have a ghost in your house? Well, bless your heart.
Bless your heart. Also, our tourist season is in the summer. It's from St. Patrick's Day, which is not through the summer until school starts, and October.
And then October.
And people flood here for all the Halloween spirit. And it's not even that we have a ton. We have some Halloween events, but it's just a spooky place to be. People will do the ghost hunts and the ghost tours and dress up and
there was zero resistance.
Everyone's like,
people were like, oh my God, it's about time. So
it was wonderful.
That's awesome. So what do you guys do as far as community outreach? What kind of events do you do? Do you go out into the public? You said you do some presentations and talks. So what events do you have at the museum as well to draw people in for community wise? You
want to talk about the out in the world ones? I'll talk about the in the world ones.
Sure. So again, we're very new. We started in May, but one of the things that we have done is we actually created a mini mobile museum, which is basically inside of a little steamer trunk, and it's just a handful of objects, but it allows us to go to things. We're actually going to a convention this weekend called MacabraCon.
It's MacabraCon's first convention.
And this will be our first outing as the Savannah Paranormal Museum. But we built the mini museum with the idea that we would make these outreaches and that we go out into the community. And really a lot of what I like to do is sort of carry with all these stories, and discuss the significance and importance of ghost stories to the human experience.
You're doing ghost stories in October.
I'm doing ghost stories at
there's a small theater called the Mars Theater. It's about 30 minutes from here in Springfield, Georgia, and they've invited Chris to come tell ghost stories there. So,
and that's my passion more than the artifacts is the stories and the stories of the artifacts and how they equate to an understanding or an openness and a readiness to accept these kinds of phenomena. And by doing so, I think that I'm trying to pull people away from the heavy weight of evidence and evidentiary research and go for experiential and the experience, so that we can qualify being in the presence of these things as worthwhile without there being like, look at this picture I got, or listen to this EVP I have, or I definitely do not rail against that. I'm like, by all means, use all the equipment, try to get those pictures, try to get that equipment, do that, but appreciate the sensation and appreciate the story and appreciate how the simple act of wanting to experience this is an experience. It is a affirmation of being alive to face down the stories of death and mayhem and hauntings.
And then in the museum, I'm the events coordinator for the museum, so coming up with events. We had one a month or two ago called A Light in the Dark, where we invited people to come in and we gave them each a flashlight. We turned off all the lights and we just let them experience the museum. And then we actually showed them some ghost hunting equipment. We let them experience and do the Estes method, and we actually had a toaster.
And we hosted, and we will host anyone who wants to bring an artifact in, and just we'll create a mini exhibit for them.
Right, people can bring it
for the length of time that they want. And we had a guy who basically hunted down the demon toaster from the 80s, which was this weird, sensation, media sensation, where this woman had toast that burned messages into the toast.
What did it say? Hail Satan?
Satan lives.
Satan lives. But I did not see this video. I was born 89, so I missed that one. But they were showing me this video because it's on YouTube. You just look up demon toaster. And so this woman got on the news. She's like, my toaster's telling me.
Yeah, it was Good Morning America.
And so they're like, can we see the toast? And she's like, of course. And she pulls it up, and it's clearly a finger scraped out. Satan lives.
It was fascinating. We got to make the toast.
We got to make toast, and our curator Justin ate a bite of the toast, and we were all standing like, eat the toast, and then he lived.
Yeah.
And so that was disappointing. But
now we have the toast shellacked and on display.
We made it its own display, and so people come through and they'll look at Justin and be like, "Are you the guy who tastes haunted stuff?" And that's like his whole bit.
That's his bit.
But coming up upcoming events, we've offered basically ghost hunts in the museum.
Small group.
10 people maximum. It's called Evidence After Dark. And so that's coming up. We've got dates in September and October, a bunch in October. And so people can come in. We will basically have somebody to guide them through as much or as little as they want. And they can use all of our ghost hunting equipment. We have a huge table of all sorts of ghost hunting equipment.
And we've sought out more unique equipment. We've worked with Austin Maynard, who develops and designs special equipment. And
the illumination station is my favorite. It's so
we got a
cool.
ghost TV, which instead of using radio signals, it actually goes up and down the TV.
But we've got the classic stuff too. We got the Boo Bear and the REM Pod. They'll get to use the Spirit Chats. So our first one's coming up in September, but those are up now. And then on Halloween, we've just made an event called, what do we call it?
Midnight Methods.
Midnight Methods.
And it'll be like a station by station. So we'll set up a station for each piece of equipment so that you can just stand and see how different pieces of equipment are used, and there'll be someone there to help explain what's going on, what's happening. And we have
I'm most excited about the Savannah psychics. They're coming in and they're going to be doing an automatic writing illustration. So we'll have Brian doing the writing and his wife Jen helping to see what is said. But we've seen him do this once or twice before, and it's a very cool technique that I personally could not do. Like, it takes a very special person.
Right. Even while we were watching Brian and seeing what he was writing, it was hard for us
to like read what was said,
determine it. But Jen would be there and explain it. Yes. And as soon as she would say it, it was like, oh, I see it. You know, oh, I see. Oh. We had missed it. And sometimes the words would be out of order, so
we'd have to go back.
She would instinctively know what order they're supposed to be in.
They both are.
And so, yeah, it's really impressive.
So we'll have stations where people can go around and spend time in each station to learn the techniques, and we'll let them try some of them. We're going to have somebody doing an Estes method and asking questions, and obviously all surrounded by the haunted items in the museum.
That's awesome. I love it all. So... What have you had that's actually happened in the museum? Like, we talked about the doll that has offerings now, but some of your other objects, you know, have you had any strange occurrences or anything that's
we have one doll named Charlotte who, when we got her, we were told she messes with technology and she makes people sick.
Sends people to the hospital.
Be careful. And so we had one instance where a curator had a message on Facebook from Charlotte in his closed phone, and when he opened it, there was nothing there. And he's like, I don't have a Charlotte friend. And we're like, that's weird. But then we have done 2 ghost hunts in there, and Chris's podcast partner, Madison, who's very sensitive, she is psychic, was sent to the hospital. She had to go to the hospital, and it happened twice in a row.
Yeah, the first time we were like, that could just be a coincidence. But the second time it was like, we need to. So we ended up having to salted around Charlotte to make sure. And there are items in our museum that are salted for that purpose. That we have people kind of come in and evaluate them, and we invite the Savannah psychics. We invite people to kind of sense their way around
and help us protect, because we don't want anyone to be at risk coming through. Even as people are exiting, we have an iron dagger at the door, a meteorite iron dagger, and we encourage them to touch it on the way out to ground whatever might have attached.
It was made by Chinese exorcists to ward away evil spirits.
And then another experience we had was with Emeraldine. She's my favorite. Don't tell the others. She's the one who has her own room in the museum. I was using the REM pod, and I was like, touch for yes. And so I was asking her questions, and we were getting some okay responses, like it was working. And then I was like, Emeraldine, if you would like me to take you out of your case and walk you around the museum, make it light up and buzz. And Chris is in the doorway of this room going, Megan, no. And Emeraldine goes, Megan, yes. And she goes, buzz. And so I'm like, sorry, Chris, she wants to come out. And so I'm taking her out. And as I do, I have a spirit chat in one hand. The spirit chat goes, beep, tricked her. Dang it. All right. So I took her around for her little joyride, and she's not stopped talking about it since. Let me out. Free me.
Yeah, we have an old German Jack-in-the-Box that was highly menacing, and we actually...
It's got an article written about it as a haunted item.
Right, in the Collector's Weekly. Actually dubbed it one of the more haunted objects ever sold at auction. And we basically had like a seance going on where one of the stories was talking about this object, and we're having a hard time figuring it out, like piecing it all together. But through the seance, we learned that it gathers power when it's closed. And if you don't close it, it kind of loses all that power. But the longer it's closed, the more power it gets, so that when you open it, it has all this like almost vengeful power. And one of the weirdest things was, as we were going through this, the psychic Brian was like, right at the end, he was just like, often. He said that, and we're like, what? And he's like, I don't know. I just heard often. I don't know. And so a little later in that same session, we were like going through other spirits. He's like, there's a little girl here. She's like upset. Yeah, there's something going on. Oh, she's saying, open the box. Don't let the box stay closed. She's very adamant about it. And I was like, does she mean the, Jack in the Box? And he's like, yes. She says the Jack in the Box killed her, that it was the cause of her death. And she goes everywhere with that box to warn people and tell them, don't close it. And I was like, that's really weird. And it was at that point that Megan looked up Offnen, which means open in German. And I was like, oh, she's been here the whole time trying to get us to keep the box open, because we had closed it in the just in the passing of it.
And it seemed like it killed her by being released. It jumped out and she
scared
was
her so bad that
eating,
she choked.
And she choked on what she was eating and died.
Or at least that's what she said.
What
she choked.
said.
So we don't think that the Jack in the Box like strangled her.
Right.
Hopefully not.
But now it's on display in the museum, and we've just left it open, which I know pisses it off.
Which was really interesting, because when it got to us, it was like bubble wrapped to death, but it was open. But it was open, and I was like, "What a stupid way to ship it!" Because it's an antique, and the hinge on the lid. I was like, "Why would you do this? There's a latch. You can close it and wrap it closed." They didn't. They sent it open, and I was like. I remember thinking, this is terrible, because it's like an antique spring, and it's spring loaded. It's not you don't play music. It's one of those things where as you open it, like a can of snakes, it pops out. And so powerfully that when it pops out, the whole box jumps up.
Yeah, it's a very, very, very powerful spring.
Yeah. So yeah, closing is like... the Kumanthong, when it came,
it smelled horrible.
It smelled like a rotting
We
death,
got this
like
thing
a
out
dead
of its
animal.
case, and it was like, ew. And it was in a room, Emerald Dean's room, because we were unboxing everything in this room. And so we would close the door, and all of the stuff was in there while we renovated the space.
Yeah.
But the smell started, and it did not let up.
And we couldn't even go into the room sometimes because it was so
gross.
It was like, it makes you want to retch this stench.
And so again, through the psychics, we sussed out that there was a certain herb they use in Thailand, and
because there was a demon in the Kumanthong. The Kumanthong is not a Kumanthong; it's a casket, a coffin for a demon. And this woman who built the coffin, built the Kumanthong, she was there in the museum, warning us, telling us this thing it's going to get out. It's trying to get out. It has the ability, because it was telling the psychic that it had broken. Now, we didn't mention it, and he hadn't seen it, but its foot had broken off in transit. And we kind of just like gingerly put it back in place. But when we heard that, we're like, oh my God, we know what he's talking about. Because he didn't even realize what it was. He was just saying, she's really upset. She's telling me it's broken. The coffin's broken. It's, and apparently, and he was saying that there's a pouch on it. And there was a pouch in its ponytail. There's a pouch on it that's keeping the spirit in, but the spirit's more powerful than the pouch. It's going to get out. She's really frantic. She's really worried. The vessel's broken. And then he was saying that he can see this white paste, and he's like, they're using it on the roof. So I think she wants you to build a roof. That's what he kept telling us, build a roof for this, the spirit. So I ended up on the phone with a monk in Thailand. And I was like, I don't know if this is going to make any sense to you, but is there something you do to the roofs of like old thatched houses with a white paste and white mortar? And he's like, oh yeah, that's the 100-year sacred herb. We use it to keep evil spirits from coming through the thatch work of the roof. I was like, can I get some of that? And he's like, I actually am making amulets out of the 100-year sacred herb, and it's supposed to ward off demons. I was like, I need that. So our dog is having a day. All right. We get this delivered to us, and the moment I put it in the case with the Kumanthong, the smell disappears. It just stops that moment. And it was so alarming because it was a stench. It was a hard smell. We were even considering having to get rid of it because we couldn't expose people to it. But when that small little amulet got into place, the scent was gone. And it was like, I'm going to take that as a sign that it's working. Mm-hmm. And every now and then you'll get just the faintest whisper of that scent. Like you'll walk by the Kumanthong, you'll be like, well, demon's trying to get out. But then it's gone. You're like, oh, okay.
That's such a amazing story that, like the white stuff that keeps the spirits out of houses, and you have no idea. And the fact that you have the amulet then that has that much of an effect on it.
It's amazing. It's absolutely incredible because it was fascinating because apparently there's a specific type of, and it's a child killing demon, like a baby killing demon. that has like this long straw tongue. And that's what they're really defending against, because it'll poke through the thatchwork, the tongue, and right into the bellies of pregnant women. And it was like, oh, that's the creature you're trying to stop with this goop, with this, weird mortar. And it's like, oh, that's kind of the imagery that Brian got. And Brian doesn't know Thai, superstitions or things. Did not know we had this Thai artifact. He was able to say that the woman he said, well, she's not speaking English. She's not American. I can't understand what she's saying now. She's showing me pictures. And that's kind of how we got to understanding what was happening and what it was.
That's amazing. I would like to remind everyone that we are live here on today's show. So if you have any questions, all you people listening live to the show, head on over to the comments section, throw your comments in there, anything about the museum or any of the artifacts, talking about that as well. And we will get them in before we wrap things up here. But you guys have been awesome. I want to thank you so much for being on here. You've mentioned some of your upcoming events. Is there anything else that you guys got going on? Where can people find you? We got all the stuff in the show notes as well for you.
You can find us at savannahparanormalmuseum.com. And we're actually very active on TikTok and Instagram, Savannah Paranormal Museum.
Everything's Savannah Paranormal Museum. It's a mouthful. It's a lot of letters. But
it's sort of semi-memorable. It's a lot of syllables. But we're also taking like suggestions for events because we're so new. Like we literally opened officially May 1st. It's kind of a malleable time. Whereas it's like if people want to see X, Y, and Z thing happen, we're the owners. We can do it. So we've thought
about like inviting people to come down and participate. We have connections with a lot of different ghost hunting organizations. We actually go ghost hunting with the Ghost Brothers. So we kind of had access to a lot of different levels of celebrity in the paranormal world through our podcast and through just a lifetime of connections.
Very cool. Very cool. Lee Warner looks like the only one that wants to chat today, but every show is different. Lee Warner says, I have friends who lived in Savannah and they said that their house was haunted.
It's a rite of passage.
Absolutely.
You live in Savannah, you have a haunted house, and if you don't, bless your heart. I mean, my house isn't haunted, but I like it that way.
Yeah.
So I said we were going to come back to this, and we'll do this with the wrap up here. So you said that you had obviously people come into the museum and share their stories and stuff, but you said that you had police officers that come in.
Oh yeah.
I'm extremely interested to hear some of the stories of like while out on patrol and having encounters and stuff. What have you heard?
We literally had a police officer. So like throughout my life, I've interviewed a lot of people to get their ghost stories. So I've talked to a lot of police officers. But when we opened the museum, within like the first week, a patrol car comes up, pulls up right in front of and comes out and has that very official swagger. It's like, oh, I wonder if he's going to, give us a citation or something. And he comes in and he just wants to tell us his ghost stories. He just wants to explain how haunted everything is. And he was talking about how haunted the first precinct building was that, he operates out of and how he ran into a spirit, like when they were doing a wellness check somewhere. But the one that was really interesting was there's this giant high school right in the middle of a neighborhood in Savannah, the Savannah Arts Academy. And it's this, sprawl. It was actually supposed to be like this luxury hotel that they end up turning into a high school. And he told me this story about how a lot of cops don't even go in there at night. Like the alarms will go off and they'll just stand outside. And he was like, he was on patrol during like an event. So he was in the building and he heard this woman just screaming bloody murder, and that perked him and his partner. Both heard it, running up and running out to locate it, thinking that someone had gotten into the main part of it, because there's like there's some sporting event or something in the gym, but they were in the main building, and they ended up like chasing this scream around, and come to learn that many people have had this experience with this screaming woman in the main auditorium of the building. So there's a theater, old theater, in the center of the entire school, and he said that he's got countless stories of patrol men and women, hearing the scream, responding to the scream, being called by people passing out in front of the school, hearing the scream from inside and calling the police and being like, I think there's somebody, in trouble or in distress inside the school. And I was like, man, I need to get in there and investigate. That's incredible. But yeah, my all-time favorite police ghost story came from a military police officer in Kansas, Fort Riley, Kansas. He had been called to an officer's quarters, and the officers lived in these kind of beautiful townhousey kind of buildings right in the I call it downtown center of Fort Riley, Kansas. And he was taking a incident report from this woman, the colonel's wife, and he's taking the report. And as he's taking the report, he looks up and he sees this girl, this 7-8-year-old girl standing in the doorway, and he does the nod and smile, and everything's gonna be all right, kind of reassurance to her, and she just goes off. And he's finishing it up, and then he looks and he says, "So how old's your daughter?" And she's like, 25. And he's like, no, the girl in the house. And she's like, there's no girl in this house. My daughter is grown, graduated from college. And he's like, I just saw a girl in your house. And then he says, in retrospect, he realized that she was wearing like a Little House on the Prairie dress. Mm-hmm. She was dressed like absolutely out of time. And he was such a no-nonsense guy. He didn't have, it's like definitely a person who did not have a lot of ghost stories. But the ones he did have, you're like, that's really interesting.
Wow. Yeah, that's next level there, coming from, police officers and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
To come forward anytime you get like park rangers or anything, even in the cryptid world and stuff, like there's the next level of that, because it's their reputation on the line.
Absolutely. And they have so many resources at their beck and call that they can kind of negotiate almost anything. So when they've run out of ways to explain it, that makes it that more it carries a lot of weight for me, at least, to hear those stories. You get a lot of paramedic stories too. Paramedics, arriving on scenes and having these flash moments that I have to imagine that that is one of the most harrowing paranormal times, is to be that close to the tragedy at that moment of a tragedy. There's a tumultuous spiritual energy of that moment,
Yeah. I've never even thought about that. Like how many paranormal experiences do, first responders and stuff have, because they're right there. And
yeah.
Wow. That's fascinating. All right, man. It has been a great show. Thank you so much for sharing it, and thank you for all the work that you do. Because, like I said, we talk a lot on the show about going to conventions, because a lot of the times these people have these experiences, whether it be cryptid or paranormal or UFO, and anytime that they try and talk to someone about this, they get ridicule. And who do you tell? So it's so important to be able to go to these conventions and speak to people. And even so, more in your case, going to brick and mortar locations, of having this spot to go and tell your story and, not be ridiculed, and have someone believe you and take you seriously, and in some cases even offer help. So,
oh, absolutely. And that's such a good point. I have a podcast called The Most Haunted City on Earth. And our whole goal of that is to provide that safe space. Because one of the things that people don't recognize is there's more to a ghost story than the event. There is a wide variety of reasons why we share and why we put forth these ghost stories, or why we even experience them. And if you're met with resistance, you don't get to explore. You don't get to find out if there are these underlying themes in how you're living, or what you're doing, or what's going on in your life. You need some place where people are listening, and they're giving you the opportunity to express the story as you understand it, as you feel it, as you have your own version of what happened. And yeah, there shouldn't be ridicule. There shouldn't be, the shame, because the unfortunate nature of ghost stories or cryptid stories or UFO stories is that so often people start with the sentence, "You're going to think I'm crazy," or "This is going to sound crazy." And it's like, we have to stop allowing that to be the response to people's significant experiences. Because we're not even dealing with whether it's true or not. We're dealing with how profound it is to the person that they need to share it. That something occurred that had enough weight to make them carry it with them and want to express it and want to tell you. And it's like, yeah, we don't know. We could never know. We don't have the ability to know. The best we can do is listen and accept, and then pay attention to the effect of the story, not just on the person telling it, but on us. How does that affect us to hear this story? Are we, put into a sympathetic air? Do we have the opportunity to help, to say, I have read stories similar. You're not alone. There are these other cases. There's there's folklore that kind of mirrors what you're saying. And that's why having a place like a paranormal museum, or having people who dedicate their lives to researching and studying it, it's not about uncovering the truth. It's about validating your experience and saying you're not alone.
Absolutely. Very well said. Very well indeed. Awesome. It has been a pleasure talking to you guys. I hope that everyone comes out. Hopefully Labor Day weekend here coming up is a big
Should be
anything special this weekend?
We're actually open Monday. Usually our hours are Thursday through Sunday, but we've added Monday on. So there's nothing specifically happening, but we've added an extra day if people are off and want to come hang out on a day when the ghosts are still on and working.
Yeah. They're on the clock.
Awesome.
They'll probably be pretty active because they don't like it
Mondays
when people
being closed.
like, hey, it's our day off.
What are these people doing here? Get out.
That definitely makes sense as well. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for tuning in for joining us today.
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely. All right, guys. You take care, and we'll talk to you later. All right, guys, that is our show for this week. Thank you all for tuning in and watching and listening. Check out the show notes. We have links to their TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and the website all there for you guys to check out. And if you're anywhere near Savannah, Georgia, if you're watching the show, you probably should go there. But check out Savannah, check out the museum, and let me know what happens, because we'd love to have a chat with you as well and see as well. Lee, you missed it. You walked out of the room. Yes, their building is haunted. They investigated it. I'm disappointed in you, Lee. All right. So with that being said, guys, thank you all for tuning in this week. Until next time, remember, we're all part of the paranormal spectrum. Take care, be well, and I'll see you next time.